Hello there guys, it's me Unstable Voltage. Welcome to this new old world tutorial series. I did one of these a couple of years ago when the game first came out, but it's a little bit dated now. There's been lots of new DLC. The mechanics of the game haven't really changed that much, but the previous video series that I made was quite long, so I intend to do this one and make it much shorter, much easier to access, and basically provide a way for people who haven't played the game to just be able to jump in and play after watching one or two videos. So, you know, hopefully it won't take that long to learn. I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, you probably have at least some experience with similar 4X strategy games like Civilization, Age of Wonders, Endless Legend, Humankind. They all follow like 90% of the same formula, so I'm mostly going to be focusing on things that are unique, or at least reasonably unique to Old World. So without further ado, let's go and jump in and start a new game. I'm not really going to go through the leaders or how any of that works, but as you can see, when you start a new game, you get a bunch of different civilizations that you can choose from, which are these portraits here at the top. And if you click on the stats button here, it will actually show you a few different things for each civilization. So for example, it will show you the technologies that you start with. So every civilization has access to the same technology tree and the same technologies, but different civilizations start with different technologies unlocked. It will also show you your unique units that you have available and also your unique shrines. I think every civilization has 4 unique shrines. They all pretty much do the same thing, so don't worry too much about the shrines. It's the unique units that are important. And also the families. Families are a bit of a new concept for a 4X game. You might be familiar with them if you've ever played something like a grand strategy game, maybe something like Crusader Kings or Europa Universalis, because that's one of the features that was added into Old World. It's basically a game where you have a lot of diplomacy and a lot of dealing with characters as well as your civilizations. Don't worry too much about that now, we'll cover that later on. But these families give you different bonuses. So essentially every time you create a new city or capture a new city, you give control of it to one of the families and you get different bonuses based on what that family is, and they're slightly different between the various different civilizations. And then finally, for each civilization, you've got a number of different leaders that you can pick down here at the bottom. These are your starting leaders. Your leader does change over time because they grow old and they can die in battle, and they will get succeeded by an heir. But different leaders have different archetypes. So Romulus here is a tactician. Scipio here is also a tactician. Marius is a hero. Sulla is a schemer. Julius Caesar is a commander. So the different archetypes all have different abilities and bonuses. I'm just going to drop in with Romulus here. I'm not going to change any of the settings. You can go into advanced setup and there's a lot of stuff in here that you can tweak. I'm not worried about that. You can go in and mess around with that in your own time if you want to have a look at the various different options and settings. So let's just jump in and basically show you how to get started with a game. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on the screen. It's a strategy game. There are lots of different resources. There are lots of different things to track. I'm not going to focus on them too much. I'll basically go through them as we come to them, but there are a few things that I want to point out. So at the start of the game, you're going to get a pop-up window like this. You will see lots of pop-up windows like this throughout the game because the game does have a narrative system. You have events, you have interactions between characters. Sometimes they will just literally have one button to click. So this one is mostly just an information window. So we are starting as King Romulus, the founder. This is the character that we are playing at. He has his own abilities and his own stats. We have an heir, so if we die or get killed, it goes over to our heir, which in the current situation is our brother. And you can have multiple heirs, and you can change the laws of your civilization to determine which order heirs go in. So does it include females or is it just males? Does it go from oldest to youngest? Does it go to siblings and then children, or children first? That's something that you'll deal with later in the game, but you can have multiple heirs, so maybe you've got 4 or more children. The first 4 heirs you have, their stats do help you, so it is worth having multiple heirs. So we'll just click on the button for this one to dismiss it. Like I said before, some of these pop-up windows will have multiple options for you to pick from. So let's not worry about that too much right now. Before we do anything, I'm going to go through 3 things on the user interface that I think are really, really useful to know. I'm not going to go through everything because, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on up here. Some of it you'll instantly recognize, like down here at the bottom, you've got information about your character and notifications. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got the mini-map with a few buttons to toggle various different icons on the main game board, and up here in the top right hand corner you've got stuff that's all relating to various different characters, and then across the top you've got your resources and some buttons up in the top right hand corner. But 3 things I really want to draw attention to. This second icon up in the top left hand corner, which is show the help screen, looks like a little encyclopedia with a question mark on it. If you click on that, it will bring up the help screen. You can also do that at any time by pressing F1, and this gives you a handy little screen that basically has an index or a table of contents on the right hand side, and you can click on things here and go deeper into it, and it'll tell you about different units and how they work. You can go into here into concepts, and it will tell you about the mechanics of the game. There is a search box at the top here, so you can look for specific things. There are some things missing, unfortunately. If you ever see any text that is this color, that's sort of the yellowy orange color, if you mouse over it, it will actually give you a pop-up tooltip that'll give you some more information. If you then see that same yellow text in a pop-up tooltip and you want to click on it, you can either click with the middle mouse button. So, for example, let's say I want to click on hidden under the stealth. So I'm mousing over stealth and I can see hidden, but I want to click on hidden. Well, how do I do that? So I can either middle mouse click on stealth, and then you'll see the border of that box actually changes from having a yellow outline, click, and then it goes grey. Now that box will stay there if I move the mouse around. That means I can now mouse over the hidden text. I could also then middle mouse click on hidden, and it would open this box, and then I could mouse over the trees, and as you can see, every single time I middle mouse click on one of these windows, it stays open. Another way you can do this is you can mouse over and hold down the shift key, and then you can move the mouse around and click on the other things. If you let go of shift and click off it, it will eventually disappear. So lots of useful information on there. One thing that I would look at is under the main categories, go down to hints. There are a few pages here that have 10 hints each, apart from the last one, that contain some useful keyboard shortcuts and some really good information that is well worth a read through. It's a lot to go through, so I'm not going to cover it right now, but I will be going through some of these things as we play through in a few turns. So that's the first thing that I wanted to cover. The second thing that I want to cover is this little number down here to the upper right hand corner of your portrait in the lower left of the screen. So this is the number of orders you have. So as you can see, the larger number at the top is 8, so I currently have 8 orders, and then the little number in green at the bottom, which you might only just be able to see depending on your resolution, is +9, which actually says there in the tooltip pop-up orders rate 9. So that means I get 9 new orders per turn. So what are orders? Orders are a very important resource in Old World because they are used for pretty much everything. They're used for moving units, they're moved for attacking, they're moved for diplomacy, they're moved for getting your workers to build improvements. Most things in Old World require orders, so it's a really, really important resource to try and manage. You can get more orders from various different methods, such as legitimacy, which is basically how legitimate your claim to the throne is and how much your people like you. The higher the legitimacy, the more orders per turn that you will get. And you can also spend this resource, which is called training. You can spend that to buy more orders. If you finish a turn and you have orders left over, they will get converted into gold, but it's only 10 gold per order, so it's really not worth it. You should try and use your orders all of the time. And the third thing that I want to point out are these little buttons here in the bottom left hand corner, just above the next unit next turn button, which is undo. So you can basically press control to undo an entire turn, press control and Z. So clicking on this basically undoes the last thing you did, and you can click it again and redo the last thing you did. you can go back up to 5 actions. So even if I was, for example, I'm just going to go here and just settle a city. Boom, the city is settled. I can now undo and take that back. Now, this can be open to abuse a little bit, because sometimes people will tend to use a scout, go and explore in a direction, see what's there, then undo the move and go back and look in another direction. It is really just there to roll back if you make a mistake, so try not to abuse it. But hey, it's your game. If that's the way you want to play it, then fine, so be it. But we're going to be using that quite a bit, especially in this little tutorial. So let's go ahead and start with the only unit that we have to begin with, and that is our settler. We can move the settler around if we want to found our city in a different location. Now, all cities in Old World have to be settled on a city site. So you will find areas on the map that look like this, where they're covered in little fences and tents or huts or yurts or whatever they are. There's usually a little walled settlement on one tile, and it'll say something like city site. Now, you have the ability to settle on any of those tiles. You don't have to settle on the one that actually says city site, so you can move around if you want to. We are just going to go ahead and settle in place. Now, as you can see, with the settler selected, you can actually see the the green tiles, which are all the ones that we could settle on. As we move the mouse around between those tiles, you'll see the purple outline of our borders changing, because when you found a city, you will start with a certain number of tiles in your city already. So you can mouse around and see where those tiles will be. Now, you'll also notice on top of the tile that I have highlighted, it has that little scroll icon, which is the orders icon, and it's saying 7, because that basically means if I move my settler to one of these tiles, it will consume an order. So I will go down from having 8 orders remaining to 7 orders remaining. So it's actually given me some information there on how many orders I will have left. So what we're going to do is we're going to settle our city. Now, I did say at the beginning about families, so whenever you settle a city, you have the option to give the city to one of 4 different families, and the 4 different families that are available are going to be dependent on the civilization that you chose. Each of these different families will give a different bonus to that city. It might be the units produced in the city, it might be the resources that that city produces. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and choose Fabius, the champions, because that will give me some extra training, and it starts me off with an extra unit. Now, it's particularly important to have a look down here at the very bottom of this tooltip. So in particular, I'm looking here. You can see it says consumes, it says -1, which technically doesn't make sense, but consumes 1 order. So the very act of settling the city is going to reduce my orders down from 8 to 7. So let's go ahead and settle the city. Click on that. So as you can see, my orders have now gone down from 8 to 7, but my orders per turn, my orders rate, has actually now gone up from 9 per turn to 10 per turn, because I gain 0.6 extra orders from having the capital city, and I also have some extra legitimacy now, an extra 0.4 legitimacy. An extra 4 legitimacy, which gives me an extra 0.4 orders. So orders are really, really important. And we'll talk about how we can get more of those later on. Next, we're going to go ahead and have a look at science. You can see at the top of the screen here, we have some options for technology. You can get to here by hitting F6. You can get to here by hitting the little science beaker, the purple beaker up on the bar at the top, which shows we're getting 12 science per turn. This will show you the entire tech tree. All of the green techs are techs that we already have. Remember, you start with 3 technologies unlocked at the beginning of the game, and the 3 that you start with depend on the civilization that you are playing. Any blue technology is a technology that we have the ability to research, and any of the ones that are greyed out we can't currently get to yet. Some of the ones higher up the tree do have prerequisites, so if we're looking here at steel, for example, steel actually has a prerequisite of ironworking to be able to unlock that one, even though it's in a different path. So it's a little bit weird the way they've done that, but there you go. Up in the top left hand corner there's a mini tree button, which basically takes away all of the extra icons and just shows you the main icons for the tech. It takes away all of the individual things it unlocks. But every time you've finished researching a tech, you are going to get a little pop-up at the top of the screen that looks like this. It'll show you the 3 different techs that you can choose from at that point. So we can go ahead here and mouse over one of these icons on either side. We've got available and we've got discard pile. So what does that mean? So basically, whenever there's a new tech to research, it only gives you a choice of 3. There are some things you can get later in the game that will expand the choice it gives you up to 4 and 5. And then there's a discard pile. Things in the discard pile you cannot currently access. It's a little bit weird. Just basically means that the technologies that you're going to get are semi-random. Yeah, you still have to have the prerequisites, but you have to choose carefully. I'm going to go ahead and click on this little button here, and that now makes the whole thing bigger, so I can see what the individual techs are that we have on offer. There's a button here that takes us back to the tech tree. If you have a leader, so your leader is basically the current ruler of your civilization. If your leader has the scholar trait, you can actually click on redraw once per turn, so a year is a turn, and that will redraw the deck. You might get the same option, so depending on how many different texts you have unlocked. And you've got the discard pile down here as well. Now, sometimes you will get things like this. So this is a bonus card, which gives you a boost to stone or wood or food or something like that. When you pick something, when you pick one of these 3 technologies, the ones that you don't pick go into the discard pile. They will eventually get shuffled back into rotation, so they're not lost forever. However, boosts are lost forever. So if you ignore a boost and pick something else, you will lose that boost. We're going to go ahead and pick trapping. The reason for that is it's got this star up in the top left hand corner. That means it's the recommended tech for us, and it shows us that it will unlock a slinger, which is a ranged infantry unit, and it'll also unlock a camp, which gives us some bonuses to lumber mills and also enables us to get the trapper, which means we can get furs, which is a resource. So let's go ahead and work on trapping. We're just going to go and click on that. We could have just clicked it up here at the top. Again, if you're unhappy with your decision, you can click the undo button and it'll just undo that decision. So we're going to go ahead and click on that button up there to get that redone. So we've got a number of different units now, and I'm quickly going to go ahead and show you how some units work. So the first thing we need to talk about is movement. If you have a look at any unit, a unit will have a maximum amount of movement. If we look down here with the warrior selected, which is our melee unit, if we look down here on the bottom left hand corner of the unit card, it might be really difficult to see there, but the first icon is their attack and defense, which is 4, and the second icon is their movement. It looks like 2 little footprints and it says base 2. You can actually go into the help screen. If you mouse over something, by the way, like for example, if we mouse over a warrior and hit F1, it should take us, it hasn't, it's taken me to the terrain tile. If I mouse over here, it should though. Yeah, if you mouse over something and hit F1, it should take you straight to it. So it's a little bit easier to see here. So a warrior has 20 hit points, 2 movement, 4 strength, and 4 vision. So 4 vision basically means it can see 4 tiles. 4 strength is the amount of damage that it's combat strength basically. Unlike things like Civilization, where you just have combat strength, there's defensive, there's attacking, and there's overall. This is overall, and 2 movement. Now you'll also notice with the warrior selected that he's got these little white dots above his head. So there's 4 white dots there. If I move the mouse, it goes down to 3, and the further away I move it, it goes down to 2, and then eventually 1. And if I move far enough away, it'll go. Let me zoom out a little bit. If I move far enough away, it'll go down to 3 red dots. Those red dots are also emulated down here on the unit card. So there's 4 white dots down to 3, down to 2, down to 1. And down to 0. So that is basically how far a unit can move. So with the camera zoomed out to about here, and I know it's a little bit messy because we've got lots of other units around, you should just be able to see these blue outlines. This is how far the warrior can move. We know a warrior's movement is 2 because it says so here. Base movement is 2. So looking at this blue circle, this is our movement of 2. If our warrior moves to here, it's a movement of 2. Moving to here is 2, here is 2, here is 2. The blue outline to the north of us here is only 1 tile away, and that's because we'll be moving on to hills, and hills, rough terrain basically slows down your movement, so it costs double. So if we were to move within this tile, we would be moving up to 2 tiles. We don't have to. We could just move here, which would only be classed as a movement of 1. However, any movement we make within this blue outline is going to cost us 1 order, because you can see that on the mouse tooltip. We'd be going down from 7 orders to 6. And it's also going to remove one of those grey dots. If we were to then move into the next blue circle outwards, it would put us down to 5 orders. It's going to cost us 2 orders to move there, because we're basically going to be moving twice. We can move up to 2 tiles per move, but that would class as 2 moves. If we were to move into the third outer circle, that would cost us 3 orders. And we would be moving 3 times, so now we have 3 red dots and 1 grey dot. And if we were to move finally to the outer circle, the 4th circle, that would be moving 2 tiles 4 times. And that would basically get rid of all of the grey dots. Now that is as far as we can move. So you don't have to do it all in one turn. We could basically move there in one turn. We can move there in another turn. As you can see, every time I move, it's reducing these grey dots down to red dots. I'm just going to go ahead and undo those movements that I've made, because it does use our orders. Now, it is possible to go beyond those circles. So this is called forced marching. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can either hit the force march button here. I can't do it at the moment because the unit is not exhausted. If I was to move the unit to the end of its movement range, then we have the force march button. So we can hit force march. Another way of doing it is if we just undo that move. Another way of doing it is if you mouse outside of where you want to go, you can just right click there anyway. They will do it automatically. Well, he's actually moved to the end of his movement. If he will stop, he won't go that far. So if we click, for example, on this resource, this honey resource, that it would be force marching. We won't move there. If I click on it, we won't move there. If I hold control and click on it, he will. So force marching allows you to move your units further than you would normally be able to. However, every unit that you tell to force march is going to cost you 100 training, which is quite expensive. And every move you make outside of the fatigue area is going to cost you 2 orders per move rather than 1. So maybe it's not something that you want to do a lot. Now, units that are exhausted, which means they've moved the maximum amount they're allowed to move, can still attack. When you attack somebody, you'll see a little red icon above the unit. There are certain actions that you can take that will stop you from being able to attack, so you can still perform an action. So let's hit fortify here. So fortifying a unit gains 5% defense, so that's just the shield, up to 25%. So if I go ahead and click on that, it will again consume an order, but I click on fortify, and now you can see this little red icon has appeared above the unit's head. That means that unit can no longer attack that turn. It's taken its action. Another thing that you can do with a military unit is add a general. So to add a general to a military unit, you have to have a unit, a leader or a character available that can be a general, and they have to be from the same house. So this is the Fabius family, so it has to be somebody from the Fabius house, which in our case is Romulus, because it's the one we started with. So we can go ahead with the warrior selected. We can go ahead and add general. It'll give me the list of people that I can make into a warrior. So we've got a couple of extra people here that we can choose from, basically. And we click on one of those. If we mouse over them, it tells us what they add to the army. We can click on one of those. We can click choose. And now you see the little banner icon has appeared above the unit. So that means that a general has been added. That unit can't attack now either. Also, whenever you get an icon like this, you use up all of your movement. So this unit can't move on this turn either. So what would have been a better solution if I wanted to move the unit is to move the unit first, and then after the unit is moved, then we go ahead and add the general. And we get a little icon here next to the unit panel to show us that a general has been added. I'm going to just undo that again because I want to save the orders that I've got in order to show you how a few more things work. So that's basically movement and combat on a unit. Next we have our scout. So scouts ignore terrain penalties, so they can move a lot further, a lot faster. Scouts also have the ability to move 5 times per turn instead of 4, and their default movement range is 3. So they can't attack, they have no offensive ability, they do have defensive strength, so they won't necessarily get killed if they get hit once. And there's a few different things that you can do with scouts. Obviously, uncovering the map is a very useful aspect. If you move a scout into trees, you will see they have a little eye icon appear above their head that is crossed out. That basically means they cannot be seen by enemy units. Any scout hiding in trees is essentially invisible. We're going to go ahead and just move him back to where he was. You can hide trees and scrub and stuff on the map temporarily by holding down the Z or Z button. It just makes the map look a little bit tidier if you're trying to look at what is beneath the trees. The next thing that we have are these sites that you'll see on the map, things that are glowing, things that can be explored. So this one, for example, is a ancient ruin. It says down here in the bottom right hand corner, ancient ruins. So if we go ahead and move our scout onto this, now we get a pop-up. So this one's hungry lawkeepers. Our explorers find a family of starving lawkeepers encamped in the ruins, surviving on scraps. Pleading for help, they offer to share their mastery of oratory in exchange for food. Will you agree to their offer? So there are 2 options here. The bottom one is we can't afford to waste food on strangers, and that would give us 1 discipline, which is equal to 24 gold per turn. The other option would be to give them 140 food, and we would acquire rhetoric, which is a tech. Unfortunately, we don't have 140 food in the bank. We only have 105, so that option is greyed out to us. But we could go ahead and take this one. So if we look up at our gold, we have 14 gold in the bank. We're gaining 20 per turn. If we go ahead and click on this, we now get 44 gold per turn because we took that option. There's a couple of other things that you can do with scouts as well. Again, I'm just going to undo because of the lack of orders that we have. But you can move scouts on top of resources. You can't do it on resources that are within your own territory. But if we go over here, for example, onto this honey, we can move the scout over here. And then we have this button on the bottom unit panel that says harvest honey. Obviously this button would be different depending on the type of resource we were standing on, but harvesting honey gives us plus 10 culture in Rome, and it uses an order. So if I go ahead and click, it will now harvest that honey. You saw the above the unit icon. Let me just redo that so you can see it. So just watch above the scout's head when I press that harvest honey button. You see -1 order, plus 10 culture. The culture goes directly into the city. It's what fills this bar up along the top. As you can see, if I mouse over this little mask on the Roma bar, it says Roman culture is currently weak, 10 of 100. That's because we just got 10 from harvesting that honey. When we get up to 100, we will move on to the next culture level. That's something I'll explain in another video. Once you have harvested one of these resources, you will notice a little white bucket icon appear above it. While that icon exists, you cannot harvest it again. But if you mouse over it, as it says here, honey needs time to regenerate, each year 10%. So in 10 turns, that icon will disappear, and you can go back over there and harvest it again. I could also go ahead and move the scout down to here, and I could go and harvest this one, which will use another order and give me another 10 culture. So again, mousing back over Roma, you can mouse over Roma, you can now see that we have 20 culture of 100. The little number to the right of that, by the way, is saying at the current rate of gain, this is how long it would take to naturally reach 100. So it's going to take 40 years or 40 turns, because we're probably gaining, we need 80, so I assume somewhere we're gaining 2 culture per turn. And yes, we are, because it says right there, 2 culture per turn, we need 80, so it's going to take 40 turns. That all makes sense. But we will go through culture again. So that's basically how scouts work. Nice and fast. good for harvesting these resources, so you've always got something to do with your scouts. Good for triggering these little events, and also good for hiding in trees and looking at what the enemy are doing. So the final thing that I'm going to go ahead and cover on this video, after undoing all the movement on this scout, are workers. So if you've played a Civilization game, you'll know what workers are. Workers are used for building improvements on your tiles. Whenever you have a worker selected, you'll normally see a number of icons appear like this around the map. These icons essentially show you some of the things that you can build. Now, don't be fooled, you're not limited to building these particular upgrades on these tiles. So for example, down here we have a source of marble, and it's recommending that we build a quarry. Now that makes sense. Building a quarry on marble is going to give us two, so the little hammer icon are civics, which is another resource that is used for construction, but again I'll cover that in a later video. Building a quarry gives us 2 civics per year. It gives us 10 stone per year, 5 of them from the quarry, 5 of them from the marble, and enables stone cutter, which is a specialist, and again I'll cover that later. So if we were to build that, and we can see by looking at the bottom here, it says construction. The construction would cost us 20 iron, which is one of the main building resources we have. We have iron, stone and wood. It would cost us 20 iron. It would cost us 1 order, and then in brackets it says for 3 years. So that basically means it's going to take the worker 3 years to build that improvement. If I go ahead and move the worker over here, first of all, we're going to use some orders just moving, because we've got to move the worker twice. So we go down from 7 orders to 5 orders. If I then click build quarry, then it goes down to 4 orders. Now you'll also notice that we're currently gaining, let's just undo the worker there, we're currently gaining 10 orders per turn. Our order rate is 10. If I get the worker to build the quarry, our order rate goes down to 9. That's because we now have -1 from improvement construction. This work is going to take 3 years to build that improvement. Let's just undo that for now, because I want to show you something else. So with a worker selected, if you mouse over a tile for something you want to build, like this one for example, this icon is to build a farm. You can see that by mousing over it. This would give us 2 population a year from the Soren, 6 food per year, and enable the farmer, which is another specialist. Now, because I've got that icon moused over, you can see several yield icons have now appeared around the city, and those yield icons show what you would get from building a farm on those tiles. So building a farm on the tile that I have highlighted would give 2 population per year and 6 food, but building a farm over on the cows up here in the top right hand corner, if I was to build a farm up there, it would just give me 7 food. If I was to build a farm up here on this hill just to the southwest of the cows, that would give me 8 food per turn. So you can see what those bonuses are. You can also choose to build something in a tile where it's not showing you can build something. If you have the tile highlighted, so you've got your worker selected, mouse over a tile, hold down control, and now on the left hand side you can actually see this little box popping up, and this is showing me everything that I can build there. So I could build a fort, a farm, a mine, a quarry, or a hamlet, and each one shows me what I would get. So the fort would give me 50% defensiveness for the city, the farm would give me 4 food per turn, the mine would give me 8 iron per turn, the quarry would give me 6 stone per turn, the hamlet would give me 20 gold per turn but cost me 1 food per turn. Now everything that you build costs a number of resources. So building a farm, again, if we look down here at the bottom, you can see the farm is going to cost us 20 wood. Now wood is one of the things that's difficult to get at the beginning of the game. Getting stone and getting iron are relatively easy because you can get that with mines and quarries. Getting food is relatively easy because you can do that with farms. To get wood, you need to be able to build lumber mills on trees. However, you don't start with the lumber mill technology. It's not massively deep into the technology tree. Lumber mills are under forestry right here, lumber mill. So you basically need stone cutting, you need polish, and you need forestry. Playing as Rome is a really good one to get this because they start with stone cutting and polish, so there's a good chance you get forestry early on. But forestry allows you to build a lumber mill. When you build a lumber mill on top of a forest tile, you will automatically gain wood per turn. In the meantime, if you don't have the ability to build lumber mills, in order to get wood, you need to chop the forest. So if I move the worker over here, we will have an option to cut trees. Cutting trees will give me 20 wood, and it will consume 1 order. But it will grow back. So if let's go ahead and zoom in a little so you can see what's going on. If I go ahead and hit the cut trees button, it happens instantly. You can still see the tree stumps are here, which means the trees will grow back, and we gained 20 wood. Now we have another option that's now appeared on the left hand side after cutting the trees that says clear land. Now clearing the land will cost another order. It will give me another 20 wood, but it also clears the vegetation, and now that we've taken the stumps out, those trees will no longer grow back. So this tile now will never be a forest again. So you don't really ever want to use the cut action twice on a single tile. So one final thing that I will point out when wanting to build something on a tile like this, let's say, for example, I want to build a farm here. I want to ignore the AI's advice, and I'm going to build a farm here. If I mouse over the farm button here, you can see at the bottom it says construction is going to cost 20 wood, and it's going to cost me 1 order for 3 years. But also look here under the requirements. This says removes the trees plus 40 wood and costs 2 orders. And the reason for that is because if I tell this worker to build a farm here, they're going to perform 3 actions all at the same time. They're going to cut the trees, which will give me 20 wood and cost an order. They're going to clear the shrub, which will give me another 20 wood and cost another order. And then they're going to start construction. So we currently have 6 orders, and we have 100 wood in the bank. If I click on this, click on the right button. If I click on what we're building, a farm, if I click on this to build the farm, it's cost us 3 orders, so we're now down to 3, and we now have 120 wood. The reason we have 120, not 140, is because we gained 20 from cutting the trees, 20 from clearing the tile, and then we spent 20 to build the farm. Now you'll also notice when I mouse over any of these icons, so food, gold, stone and wood, we actually have icons below to buy and sell. Now you always costs more money to buy something than you get for selling it, so you're not going to be able to turn a profit by buying it and selling it back. And also the more of something you buy, the more it costs. So I don't really have enough money in the bank to make that work, but the more of something you buy, the more expensive it will be. So you might be tempted to just keep buying all the wood you need. Eventually the price is going to skyrocket and you won't be able to afford to buy it anymore. Now there are some instances where you might need to build something that you don't have the resources for. So let's, for example, think about building a quarry. A quarry requires 20 iron. We have 100 iron in the bank. So let's go ahead and sell our iron. I'm just going to control click to sell the entire stack of 100. So you'll now see the quarry icon is grayed out, and that's because I don't have enough iron. If you look down here at the bottom, you can see the iron is in red. I don't actually have enough to build it. I'm just going to go ahead and move the worker into that tile. Now, if you also look down here in the bottom, you'll see this extra bit of text. It says, hold Alt to buy 20 iron for 76 gold. So what I could do, because I need 20 iron to build this quarry, I could go over here and just buy 20 iron. Shift click lets me buy 10, so I could go shift click. Now I have 20 iron. And then, oh no, I didn't click it the second time. Shift click, there we go. Now I have 20 iron, and now I can just click this and get the worker to build the quarry. But the quicker, easier way of doing it, no iron in the bank, click on the worker. If I hold down Alt and then I click, it will automatically buy the iron needed to build that improvement. So that's basically how workers operate. In the next video, I'll be going through building in the city, training units, and how to build other improvements within the city. I'll talk about governors and about culture and citizens and discontent and how all of that stuff works. So for this video, we were mostly just concentrating on the map itself. What I will say is when you settle your first city, it will automatically start producing a settler. I would always recommend allowing that settler to complete. One, you get it free, so you didn't have to pay 100 food cost to produce it. And secondly, it starts with a boost. Normally at the beginning of the game, a settler would take 8 years to produce. The starting one is already down to 5 years, so you'll get your first settler within 5 turns. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Like I said, in the next video, I'll be coming back and talking about how we start to build up our cities. We'll also talk about combat as well. I'm sure we'll find some barbarians, and then we'll get into the gritty stuff of dealing with families, characters, and relationships. So thanks very much for watching. I will see you on the next video. Until then, goodbye for now.